All right, today we're going to peel back the layers on PD Pinago Utama. They're a really big deal in Indonesia's agribusiness scene, and we're going to do it using their own words, their annual reports, to really see how they managed to steer through a pretty wild year of global economic chaos.
So here's the game plan. First, we'll get to know who Pinago actually is. Then, we'll talk about the massive global storm they had to navigate. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how they make their products. Then, of course, we've got to look at the numbers. Did they actually do well? And finally, we'll take a look at who's calling the shots and what their plan is for the future.
All right, section 1. So, first things first, let's get a really solid idea of what PT Pinago Utama is all about.
So, when we say they're an integrated agribusiness, what does that really mean? Well, it means they handle the whole shebang. They're not just planting seeds and hoping for the best. Nope, they manage the entire process, from the plantation all the way to the final processed product for two huge global commodities, palm oil and rubber.
And this table really breaks it down nicely. Think of it as two main engines driving the company. On one side, you've got the palm oil machine taking those fresh fruit bunches and turning them into crude palm oil. And on the other side, you have the rubber operation making the stuff that ends up in things like car tires. Now, what's super important to remember is that these are two totally different markets. And as you're about to see, they had, well, let's just say they had very different fortunes this year.
So you might think, okay, big agricultural company seems straightforward enough. But here's the thing. Pinago wasn't operating in some peaceful little bubble. The year we're looking at, 2022, was, well, it was a minefield of global challenges.
I mean, just look at this list. It's like a greatest hits of economic nightmares for 2022. You've got geopolitical crises, China's lockdown policies throwing a wrench in everything, supply chains just completely breaking down, and of course, inflation running wild. It was a true perfect storm, and it hit absolutely everything, from the price of their products to whether people were even buying them.
So with all that chaos swirling around, what was their response? This quote from their own report really tells you everything you need to know about their philosophy. They basically say, look, tough times are a given. We can't avoid them. But instead of panicking, their whole strategy is to double down on what they can control, building a rock-solid, skilled team that can find opportunities and weather any storm.
Okay, so we know their mindset is to focus inward. But what does that look like on the ground? How do they actually make their products, especially when the world outside is so unpredictable?
This right here, this is the secret sauce. It looks like a simple four-step process, right? Harvest, process. But hang on, look at steps 3 and 4. This is where it gets brilliant. They take all the waste, the stuff other companies might just throw away, and they see it as a resource. They turn that waste into valuable new stuff, like organic fertilizer and even biogas for energy. It's not a line, it's a circle. A completely self-contained, efficient, and honestly pretty sustainable system.
All right, that all sounds great in theory, right? A smart, circular model, but here's the million-dollar question. Did it actually work? Let's look at the numbers and see if this clever strategy paid off when things got tough. Okay, let's start with palm oil. And wow, the data here is pretty clear. Just look at the difference between 2021 and 2022. Production of crude palm oil, their main product, took a really significant leap upwards.
And to put a number on it, we're talking about a 16.15% increase in just 1 year. In that kind of global climate, that's not just good, that's a huge testament to how well their operations are running.
But hold on, it's not all sunshine and roses. Remember how we said they had two main engines? Well, this table tells a tale of two very different businesses. While palm oil was booming, with both CPO and palm kernel up over 16%, look at rubber. It went in the complete opposite direction. Production for both types of rubber dropped, and by a lot. This really hammers home just how differently those global pressures affected each market.
So, you see these mixed results? One part of the business soaring, the other struggling. That brings up a really important question. Who's making the big decisions here? Who is steering the ship through these choppy waters? Let's dive into the people and the plan behind all of this.
Now, if you read their report, you'll see this phrase pop up again and again: good corporate governance. It sounds a bit like corporate jargon, but it's actually super important. Think of it as the company's rule book. It's the whole system of checks and balances that make sure everything is run properly, ethically, and in the best interest of everyone involved.
And their structure is a classic example of this in action. You have two key groups: the board of directors, They're the ones on the ground, running the day-to-day business, making things happen. Then you have the board of commissioners. You can think of them as the supervisors or the oversight committee. They keep an eye on the directors, give advice, and make sure the company is staying true to its long-term strategy and keeping its shareholders happy. And to back up those main boards, they have these specialized committees. It's all about focus. The audit committee, for example, is laser-focused on the money, making sure the financial reports are accurate and the internal controls are solid. Then the nomination and remuneration committee is all about the people, helping to pick the right leaders for the board and figuring out fair compensation. It adds another layer of security and good practice.
So what's next for them? Well, a huge piece of their future strategy is all about one word: efficiency. They want to squeeze more value out of what they already have. The goal is to crank up their palm oil processing from about 86 tons per hour closer to its full capacity of 110. It's a smart move, boosting output without having to spend a ton of money on brand new facilities.
And that really brings us to the final big question, doesn't it? We've seen the Pinago is tough, they're resilient, and they've got this really clever integrated waste-to-value model. But in a world that seems to get more volatile by the day, will that be enough? Is this the key that unlocks truly sustainable growth for the long haul? That's the thought I want to leave you with.